Welcome to Super Sunday, the last day of an incredible season for Newcastle United. Welcome to our unique NUFC podcast. Welcome to the Champions League. Welcome to Black and White with Arab News.
Sum that up, back in the Champions League.
Can it? It's madness. I can't believe we're back in the Champions League. I was a bit nervous towards the end, but I think we've been brilliant all season. We've thoroughly deserved it. It's amazing to do it at home in front of the fans.
As the two march into London safe in the knowledge of Champions League football, we welcome back an NUFC legend to sum up the achievements and what we can look forward to possibly and what's next for the club. Robbie Elliott is with us. But first, as always, it's a very warm welcome to my co-host and, of course, Arab News sports editor, Ali Khaled. Ali, the Toon did it with a game to spare with a 0-0 home draw against the Foxes. The result was secondary because it's just been one heck of a season.
Hey, Pete. First of all, congratulations to you and to all Newcastle fans. Finally over the line, as we expected. I think
as you expected.
Yeah, I've expected. I know you've been a little bit cautious about jumping on the bandwagon, but I think overall, you look back on the season, they've been in the top four for the majority of the season. I think, even before the World Cup, the performances were excellent. There was a slight dip around the cup final, but I think all in all, I wouldn't say a very comfortable qualifications, but a relatively comfortable qualification. I think, as you say, against Leicester, not the most comfortable of games. I think the least said about my prediction from last week, the better. I think I said 4-0 to Newcastle. But in the end, it didn't matter. They got over the line. You could see by the reaction of the players at the end. And the man and Eddie Howe, it's like just exactly what it meant to them. And again, just to repeat, around the cup final, everyone was saying, around the Carabao Cup final, everyone was saying, look, we'd rather win a trophy and worry about everything else later, which is absolutely the right thing to say and to want, really. Just get that first piece of silverware. But I also said that having lost it, or even had they won it, the Eddie Howe would privately be really focusing on the Champions League, and that by the time the end of the season comes around, the cup final might be slightly a bit of a distant memory, and that's what's happened. I think overall, fantastic season.
Fantastic season. Listen, somewhere else, before we get to Robbie Elliott, somewhere else where it's been a fantastic season is in our homeland in the Saudi Pro League. Amazing scenes over there the weekend.
But yeah, I mean, Al Ittihad are champions. They beat Al Fayha 3-0 to wrap up the title, which means Cristiano Ronaldo does not get a championship in his first season. Obviously, when he joined Al Nassr, they were top of the table. They drew with Ittifaq 1-1. I think Al Ittihad only needed a win anyway, but just rubber stamped it with one match to go. So congratulations to Al Ittihad. It's been a great season here, and obviously they're managed by someone who's very familiar to Premier League fans, Nuno Espirito Santo, who was manager of Wolves and Tottenham. So last year he got close with the team. They fell apart really near the end of the season and lost the title to Al Hilal. But they've come back strongly this year, and congratulations to them.
Absolutely, and what an absolutely fantastic season all around. Better luck to Cristiano in whatever may happen. But looking forward to following the Pro League again next season. Lots of big names there, some great players as well. Okay, time to meet today's guest. It's a very warm welcome to Robbie Elliott. What a season it's been. Robbie, when you look back and see that this time last year, the club had just secured Premier League football, it's quite remarkable looking at the table now.
It really is, and it's something that I don't think anybody expected when the season kicked off in August last year. So, yeah, a huge testament to Eddie and the players for what's happened this year.
I mean, when you look at it, though, it was literally a couple of games to go last season, securing that Premier League status. I mean, and a similar group of players as well. So what, as a former player, knowing what it means to the fans, how do you think those players must feel? I mean, they're going into a game today, which is they can possibly enjoy off the back of the performance, but going from relegation to Champions League football, it's quite a fairy tale, isn't it?
It really is, and I think the word momentum obviously has to be used within the dressing room. It's what it's like in Newcastle. Once things start going well and you start building that momentum, it is a runaway train. but I did see an article that Big Dan Burn,
Yeah.
saying how it's tinged with sadness, which is a really interesting way to look at it. But his reason being that this season's been so special from start to finish, and as good as it's been, it's going to be a different set of people. It's going to be different feelings next year, different expectations, and it was a very interesting way he put it, of a tinge of sadness at the end of the season when the season has been so exceptional.
It's interesting you say that, because it brings us nicely into the next point. With everything Champions League football brings, and inevitably it's going to bring change. What do Newcastle United have to do on the pitch and off the pitch, in the immediate approach work to cement in a place for being a top 4 club now?
Oh, if I knew, I'd be calling the club. But yeah, I think the saying is, and I've taken it from Darren Neal's, is champagne problems. It's issues. And again, you look at where we were this time last year, to think we're looking at the Champions League and how do we sustain ourselves as a Champions League club. It's incredible. But I think you alluded it there. It's both on and off the pitch that the club has to grow. In all departments, basically. So everyone's striving to be the Manchester City, I think. I think they're the benchmark. And I think Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea will probably give it another push next year. So it's going to be incredibly hard to maintain the Champions League positions. But again, with some smart investment like the club have done, and some good people behind the scenes, I think it's something that they have to be looking at.
The players are obviously aware of the fact that there will be changes in order to move to a next level, so to speak. But is there the thought process as well that Eddie could he's a character that likes the togetherness before a marquee signing? So do you think there'll be a mix of both?
I think so, and again, I think he does his due diligence on the signings. It's good people as well as good players. I do think there might be one standout signing. I think that might be the way the club do it. We keep hearing different stories from inside the club, but again, they're in that middle ground of, do they go out and spend a £200,000 a week player, thinking that we're going to get in the Champions League next year, and if we don't, then it's a gamble. So there's a lot of moving parts, and again, it's not just, we're not in a position where we just need one player. Champions League standard, we need to build a squad. So I'm sure Dan and Eddie have got a plan of where they're going to invest and which are the priorities.
Yeah, interesting that Eddie said he's so guarded and brilliant in the press conference. They're actually enjoyable as well watching him, and he has this great rapport where he knows that he's not giving the press what they want, but they have that respect for him, and his press conferences are brilliant. But he alluded that if it was a marquee signing, then who am I to complain? So it's obviously the discussion has been waiting for what we said a couple of weeks ago, Rob, that they will wait and see into which competition they'll be playing before that. So that the discussions have obviously taken place, I would imagine. Yeah,
and again, I think over the last few months there's been multiple lists being employed within the club of who they want, depending on where they finish. And again, it's going to be fascinating which players actually they can get into the club and how much they're going to spend, which will then dictate who else they get on the second, third, fourth signing. So it's going to be a very interesting summer, especially in the northeast. But I think in the league itself, there's a lot of movement going to be happening.
A lot of clubs need to strengthen, don't they? Not just Newcastle United.
Yeah, and again, with no big tournament, you want to get your work done and the big moves done quickly. So again, it's going to be very interesting who moves first, and if any of the big players do go from some of the competition. Interesting. Listen, we do have a game. We're talking about next season, but there's a game to be had today in London. It's going to be an emotional day for all the players, for Chelsea and Newcastle. But
Newcastle can go and enjoy that today, the players, can't they, on what's traditionally a nervy last day for Newcastle?
I mean, this is, it doesn't get any better going down there in this position, the position they're in. I'm sure the fans will have a fantastic day out, and the players have earned it. They should be having a nice end of the season for this game.
You can see that the confidence will be in the club, and it'll be nice to go to one of the supposed big six, Robbie, as qualified for the Champions League, and then they've had a difficult season themselves. So there will be a feeling from the fans, certainly, that there could be a change in the guard. I'm sure they'll let the Stamford Bridge crowd know, as they always do. Just going back, if we could, to next season after today's game, which position would you like to see through the door in preparation earliest for a new season? Is there a standout position that you think, yeah, I like to see a bit of strengthening in that department? Or do you think that it would just be a signing that bolsters both the profile of the club, but also give them a standing in Champions League football?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I'm not sure where the priority is. I think the rumours are it's a winger, left back, centre mid, centre back. So again, if you look at the back four, it's been incredible this season. So do we look at a centre mid and a winger? And for me, it's a Champions League winger would be the one.
Okay.
That's where I would be looking first, I think.
Also, you mentioned the defence, and they have what a fantastic unit they have been, but they've had their struggles in the last 14 or 15 games. Leicester was one of the first clean sheets they've had in a while, and that was sort of the bedrock that they built this run on. So, do you think you might have a look at that as well and say, we need a few additions if there's tiredness in there, if he wants to change it up?
I mean, I think that there's definitely going to be a couple of defenders coming in. I think the squad just has to grow as a whole anyway. With the Champions League, it's going to add a few more games, and obviously the way Eddie's going to play, he plays his best team as much as he can. But there's going to be more strain within the players on the bigger schedule.
And he mentioned two squads, didn't he? Over the last sort of 7 days, he said that if they're going to be playing in these competitions, that it's possibly a two squad look at the team now. So and again, something that we touched on a couple of weeks ago when you were on was that we were saying that it's not substitutes anymore with the 5 subs. It's like having 2 different teams from an hour. 60 minutes. We saw him bring Isak on or Wilson. So I think that rotation is going to be key in whatever happens.
Yeah, and again, obviously the 2 teams, I think there's only Man City have ever got close to that, where they could literally put 2 teams out. But again, that's where Newcastle should be looking now. We should be looking at the Manchester Cities, and they're the teams we should allude to be, as opposed to the lower half teams when we just looking to stay in the league. So it's a nice thing to be looking at, but that's going to take a few years, I think.
It is. We're looking down the line, but let's look at today. Fantastic to have Robbie Elliott on with us, of course, a Newcastle United legend. Score for today at Chelsea.
So I can see it being one of these funny last game of the seasons, and I think there's going to be a few changes in the Newcastle side. I can see Newcastle 3-2 win. So
lots of goals. And again, with another result depending on it, the shackles are off. Hopefully an enjoyable day for everyone. And it'll be a special day. Frank Lampard leaves Chelsea again, so it's going to be an emotional day at Stamford Bridge. Let's hope Newcastle can capitalise it. As always, brilliant to see Robbie Elliott, and no doubt we'll be speaking to him ahead of the new season. Ali, Robbie there with some very salient points. I think we're already looking ahead to next season. I know we've still got a game to concentrate on today, but in essence, some of the points that Robbie came back with about what Newcastle start to think about now is big club syndrome, isn't it? Which they've got to start thinking about. But I wanted to come first to you with all sorts of rumours will start and players will be coming and players will be leaving. Is the squad strong enough? But at Eddie's press conference at the weekend, he was asked, and it was a very left field question for me. He was asked if he wanted to stay. which was answered in typical Eddie fashion, but a strange question from the media.
Yeah, very strange, because I really can't see what other job at this point in time could possibly tempt him away. Everything is set in place for success at Newcastle. He's done a fantastic job in the last 18 months or 20 months since he's taken over. And I think, you're always going to hear rumors about being an England manager or next England manager, whenever there's a young, good, successful young England coach, English coach. But at the moment, I find that a very strange question. I don't think he will be entertaining any thoughts of leaving. Champions League football is finally secured. There will be a lot of, I think, or several, shall we say, big signings, I think, this summer. We talk a lot about, you've come to the Champions League table now. You're going to be signing players that can compete at the Champions League. You're going to be signing players who want to play in the Champions League, who probably wouldn't have joined if you haven't been in the Champions League. But I think, we keep forgetting that the main prize will be the Premier League. You want to sign players who are going to graft for that full season. It's not just about the Champions League. I think the Champions League is a massive statement. Fantastic that they're in it ahead of schedule. And obviously it makes, the caliber of players coming to St. James's Park, of a higher level. But, I think, those players who are coming because of the Champions League really will be tasked with, going for the Premier League now. I mean, Newcastle going forward will be considered one of the title challengers.
It leads me perfectly, seamlessly, as our partnership does, into my next question for you. In essence, the real work start here then, to cement staying in this moment, to coin a Jurgen Klopp phrase, which I love, for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would imagine they'd already drawn up lists of players that they were going to sign, or they were going to approach at least, had they qualified for the Champions League and had they not qualified for the Champions League. So I think the moment that game against Leicester finished, I have no doubt that at management level, they would already be looking forward to next season, thinking about the players that might come in. They will have their own target. Eddie would have drawn up a list, I'm sure. And the way they've done business so far, I would imagine more of the same. Maybe not. They will have players of a slightly higher Champions League caliber coming in, but I would expect the style and the fashion of doing business will be the same, which is get things done quickly, without too much speculation. Give Eddie as much time as possible to work with these players in pre-season.
Absolutely. Listen, like we both said to Robbie, we do have a game to play today before we are already talking about next season. There is a game. It's going to be an emotional day at Stamford Bridge as Frank Lampard leaves Chelsea for an unprecedented third time. No Joe Linton for the Toon either. No long staff. So pressure's off. Nothing to play for either side. Do you see an open game?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially for Newcastle. I think the pressure is off because obviously they've been playing with a lot of pressure throughout the season, in the league. An incredible run of results, really, and I think, this is the first time in a very long time they like a league match doesn't mean anything for Newcastle. I think they'd want to win, of course, because there's still a chance of finishing third above Manchester United. But really, they can enjoy the occasion and for them at least have a bit of fun as the season wraps up. I think for Chelsea, nothing to play for. It's been like that for a while now. They'd want to go off on obviously give their fans something to cheer about after a really, really disappointing season. And obviously Frank leaving again. So I think for different reasons, as you say, it might be an open game, a couple of goals here and there. I think, I mean, I'm looking forward to a slightly more open game than it would have been if something was on the line.
You and Robbie both, he predicted goals just before there, didn't he? I mean, he's going for a 5-goal thriller. The pressure's off. I think somewhat, though, the pressure's not really off Chelsea, as you just alluded to there. I think there'll be a little pressure because players nowadays, they're not encouraged to do so, but there's always a a walking round thanking of the fans. That could be pretty awkward at Chelsea if they're forced to go and thank the fans at Stamford Bridge today.
Yes, a really good point. I think if they do lose today, then it will not be it won't be comfortable lap of honor, shall we say, or like saying thank you to the fans. Frank, I'm sure the fans will, despite everything, still give him a good send off.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a lot of discontent with the players anyway, even if should they win today. But if they lose, it could be quite an awkward. I would imagine there'll be a few jeers at the final whistle, a few boos, and possibly some fans maybe even leaving. I don't know, usually fans stick around on the last day of the season. But a lot of the Chelsea fans that I've spoken to are really, really unhappy. And I don't think even a good performance or a good result today will change much. But at least it'll mean that the final game of the season will end on a civil note.
And soccer ball owner Todd Bowley, he's not going to be there to see it. He has business to attend to. Or, am I reading too much into that? Let's leave it, though. Listen, Ali, I've got a challenge for you. I started the season challenging you by getting you to do predictions, but today's challenge is really difficult. I'm going to ask you to sum up, if you can, in one sentence, Newcastle United's season, and then after that, give us your prediction for today, the last game.
I think that's very difficult. In one sentence, I would say, it's been consistent throughout. Like from day one, absolute consistency, resilience. Whenever there's been any dips in form or bad results, and in the end, I think just brilliant football throughout the season. I think everything Eddie Howe touched really turned to gold. With substitutions, with rotation, with tactics, and in the end, again, I'd say what I said at the start of the pod. Relatively comfortable Champions League qualification, well ahead of schedule in terms of targets. I'm sure you guys can't wait for next season.
Can't wait, and perfectly put. Give us a score.
I'm going to go for 2-2.
2-2. Goals galore from both our pundits today. Looking forward to that one. Listen, that's it for another episode of Black White. But don't forget, like every good awards ceremony that there should be, Ali will have his shirt and tie on as we, I think we do a review, a black and white with Arab News review on the next podcast. Favourite goal, and we'll get a few special friends along to commemorate that as well. But for myself, Geordie Pete Redding, and him, Ali Khaled, for another episode of Black and White with Arab News. How are the lads?